The champagne glass slipped from my hand as he shouted across the room, "We are done. The wedding is off." Everyone stared at me, at his father, at the stain on the floor. His father's hand was under my skirt in front of everyone, and I still told myself it was nothing. Now everyone blames me, and maybe they're right, but I'm not sure. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Isolde Hart. I am 31. I work the front desk at a small dental clinic near the bus line. I like order. I like lists. I like to know what will happen next. My fiancé, Leon, likes peace. He listens, nods, and says kind things. People say we are a good match. I thought so too. But lately I felt unseen. I was the one who smiled, took notes, and said yes, while others took the credit. We live in a narrow apartment with thin walls and a view of a parking lot. I take the early shift and bring home leftover muffins from the cafe. Leon teaches music to children. He is gentle. He is steady. He is safe. I know these are good things, but good can be quiet, and quiet can feel like air with no taste. I wanted more taste. Leon's father, Gareth, is not quiet. He walks into a room and the room pays attention. He tells stories, tips well, remembers names. When he first met me, he said I was calm and graceful. He told people I held the family together. No one had said words like that to me before. I told myself it was kindness from an older man. Harmless. The first small thing happened at a family dinner. I carried a bowl to the table. His hand brushed my waist, a little longer than normal. Warmth moved through me like a small current. I froze, then laughed at a joke. Later he texted, "Thank you for saving the evening with your smile." I replied, "Glad to help." I called it polite. I called it nothing. That is what I decided. Leon did not notice my pause when his father spoke to me. Leon did not see the way Gareth's eyes stayed on me when I stood to fetch water. Leon trusts people. It is one of his best traits. It makes him easy to love. It also makes him easy to ignore. A week later, Gareth asked if I could help him pick a tie for a charity event. He said I had good taste. He said Leon was busy and it would be quick. I told myself I was supporting the family. I told myself this is what future daughters-in-law do. We met at a quiet store where the carpet was soft and the clerk spoke like a whisper. Gareth stood close while I held fabrics to his jacket. He said, "You make everything look better." I smiled. That night Leon asked about my day. I said it was fine. He asked about his father. I said we only talked about ties. He said, "Thank you for helping." I said, "Of course." I did not mention the way Gareth touched my elbow and let his hand rest. I did not mention my faster heart. It was only a moment, and moments, I told myself, are not wrong. They are only moments. The rehearsal dinner came. The room was warm and bright. Friends, aunts, cousins, music from a small speaker. I wore a simple blue dress that moved when I walked. I carried plates from the kitchen to the long table. Gareth stood at the end of the hall and watched me like I was a picture in a frame. I told myself I was reading too much into it. I kept moving. When I passed him with a tray, his hand slid under the tray and along the fabric of my skirt. It was quick. It was bold. People were laughing and not looking. My breath caught. I stepped away so fast I almost dropped the food. A spoon hit the floor and rang like a bell. Elise, his mother, turned her head. Gareth smiled at her, then at me, as if nothing had happened. Heat rose in my face. I looked for Leon. He was near the window with his sister. I wanted to say, "Your father crossed a line." But I did not. I told myself I misunderstood. I told myself older men can be clumsy. I told myself the fabric is slippery, and hands sometimes slip. It was easier than starting a storm. Later that night, Gareth texted, "You looked stunning. Proud to have you join our family." I stared at the words. I typed, "Thank you." I erased it. I typed, "Please keep things respectful." I erased it. I sent nothing. I put my phone face down and lay awake. In my head, I heard the spoon hit the floor again and again. The next morning, Leon asked, "Did you sleep well?" I said, "Yes." It was a lie. I told myself I was protecting him from pain. I told myself silence was mercy. At the clinic, I checked in patients and spoke softly about insurance and forms. My smile felt stiff, but no one noticed. 2 days later, Gareth came to the clinic with a gift bag. Inside was a silk scarf. He said it would match my blue dress. He said, "You deserve beautiful things." The other receptionist smiled and said, "How sweet." I felt trapped between light and shadow. I said thank you because everyone was watching. After he left, I hid the scarf in a bottom drawer. That evening, Leon found the box. He smiled and said, "Dad is generous. He likes you a lot." He asked me to wear the scarf to the welcome dinner. I nodded. I could not speak. I wanted to tell him, "Please do not ask me to wear this," but I swallowed the words. At the welcome dinner, the house shone again. The smell of citrus and roasted chicken, cards on a side table. Music moved along the ceiling. I stayed near the kitchen, refilling glasses, avoiding the end of the hall. Elise watched me with a tight smile that did not reach her eyes. Leon took my hand and said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I am fine." He said, "You look pale." I said, "It is warm in here." It was partly true. Then Gareth raised a glass and told a story about the first time he met me. He made me sound perfect. People clapped. I felt my skin crawl. I needed air. I walked toward the hall. He followed. The hall was narrow. He stepped close. He reached again, quick and sure, and slid his hand higher than before. A tray clattered. Heads turned. The room went silent. Leon saw my face change. Gareth's smile fell flat. I said, "It is fine," before I even knew I was speaking. Leon stared at me, then at his father. Elise pressed her lips together. A cousin whispered, "Did you see that?" Another said, "Maybe it was an accident." I stood in that narrow space and told myself a final soft lie. If I keep quiet, this will pass like a small cloud. I told myself the hallway moment would fade if I stayed calm. If I smiled, helped with plates, and said nothing, people would forget. This was my plan. Keep the house quiet, keep Leon calm, keep myself clean. I believed that was kindness. The next morning, Leon made coffee and watched me. He did not play his guitar. He did not hum. "Are you okay?" he asked. I said, "I am fine." He waited for more. I gave him nothing. He said, "What happened with my father?" I said, "He bumped into me. The hall is narrow." Leon frowned. "That is not what I saw." I lifted my mug and said, "You only saw what you wanted." He looked away, hurt and confused. It was easier to let him doubt himself than to let him see me. I went to work and told myself I was busy. I checked in patients, stamped forms and nodded at small talk. At noon, my phone buzzed. A message from Gareth. "You looked pale last night. I am sorry if I pushed a boundary. You are special." I stared at the screen. The words looked like care, but they felt like a hook. I typed, "Please stop." I erased it. I typed, "We should not talk." I erased it. I put the phone in my drawer and told myself silence was the high road. At home, Leon tried again. "Tell me the truth," he said. I said, "The truth is, you do not trust me." He said, "I want to, but I feel wrong inside." I said, "You always feel wrong. You call it caution, but it is fear." He bit his lip and nodded like I had taught him a lesson. I felt powerful. I called it leadership. Others might call it something else. 2 days later, Gareth came to the clinic. He asked for whitening strips and then slid a small box across the counter. Inside was a silver bracelet. "It is simple," he said. "No one will notice." I kept my face still. The other receptionist said, So kind. I said, thank you, because she was looking. When he left, I hid the box in my bag and felt the shape of it all afternoon like a stone. That evening, Leon found the bag. What is this? He asked. I said, a gift. He said, from my father. I said, he gives gifts to everyone. Leon stared at me. He does not give gifts like this to everyone. I laughed. You are jealous of a bracelet. He shook his head and walked to the sink. I am scared, Isolde. His voice was soft. I feel like I am losing you, and I do not know why. I wanted to tell him he was right. Instead, I said, then be stronger. Elise called the next day. We are so close to the wedding, she said. Let us not invite trouble. I asked, what trouble? She paused. The way you move around Gareth, the way people look. I laughed. People look because I work hard, I said. People look because you make them look, she replied. I said, I am joining your family, not fighting it. She said, then act like it, and hung up. I made a new plan. I would keep Gareth at a distance in ways no one could see. I would not reply to messages. I would avoid the end of the hall. I would smile at Elise and be sweet to the cousins. This would fix it. I wrote it in my list and checked the boxes in my head. But lists do not fix people. Gareth sent another message. You deserve better than doubt. I see you. I did not answer. He sent a photo of the blue tie I had chosen. Luck, he wrote. I locked my phone. At dinner, Leon tried to talk about music class. I nodded and said, great. He said, they learned a new song today. I said, nice. He looked small at the table. I told myself he made me small first by asking hard questions. I told myself this was balance. A cousin pulled me aside in the kitchen and whispered, did something happen? People are talking. I said, people always talk. She said, I am on your side. I smiled and poured her tea. It felt good to have a side, even if it was only one person. Leon began checking the family group chat late at night. I woke to the blue light on his face. He scrolled, sighed, and turned the phone face down when I opened my eyes. I said, do not bring gossip to our bed. He said, I am trying to understand what is true. I rolled over and said, truth is what we make with our choices. It sounded wise. It was also a net I had tied for myself and now lived inside. On Thursday, Gareth showed up at our building. He waited near the mailboxes and said, walk with me. I kept my arms folded. No, I said. He smiled like he was patient, like I was a child with a fear. It is simple, he said. We talk, then we stop this noise. Leon will calm down. Elise will forget. You will have your wedding. I wanted the quiet more than I wanted the truth. So I walked. We sat on a bench behind the building. He said, I am sorry for my hands. I said, do not touch me again. He nodded. I will not, he said. Then he added, but you have to help me. You have to say nothing happened. You have to say I tripped. I looked at the bricks and the weeds between them. Why me? I asked. Because they will believe you, he said. You are the calm one, the kind one. Use that power. I liked the word power. I did not like where it came from. I said, I will not lie. He smiled. You already did, he said softly. The ground tilted under my feet for a second. I stood and said, stay away from me. He said, then protect Leon. Keep this small. I went upstairs and washed my hands like there was dirt on them. Leon came home with flowers from a student's parent. He placed them in a glass and said, I miss you. I said, I am right here. He said, no, you are far. I touched his sleeve and said, we need calm. We need to ignore noise. He nodded. Okay, he said, like a promise he knew he could not keep. The next day at work, I saw a review online. Front desk is cold. It might not have been about me, but it felt like it. When I bent to pick up a dropped pen, I smelled Gareth's cologne in the lobby. I stood fast. He was not there. I was still afraid. Elise sent me a long message. We must meet to align. She chose a cafe with white tiles and tall windows. She ordered tea for me without asking and said, "You will wear the scarf." I said, "No." She blinked. "Excuse me?" I said, "I will not wear his gift." She leaned in. "You think the scarf is the problem. The problem is you. You invite attention and then blame others for looking." I kept my face still. "I do not invite anything," I said. She breathed out slowly. "Then prove it. Block his number. Put your phone on the table. Do it now." I stared at the screen. Gareth's name was there, last message unread. My thumb hovered. I said, "I will handle it my way." Elise sat back. "Your way is breaking my son," she said. I went home angry. I told Leon, "Your mother tried to control me." He said, "She is scared." I said, "She is rude." He said, "Maybe, but she loves me." I said, "Then she should trust you." He said, "She does not trust my father." We fell quiet. The room felt like a box with the lid almost closed. At night I could not sleep. I replayed the hallway. I replayed my lies. I told myself I had not cheated. I told myself I never kissed anyone. I told myself I was the victim of noise. These words were soft and warm and wrong. Saturday came with another family dinner. I stood on the porch and told myself, smile, serve, leave early. I lasted 30 minutes. Gareth raised a glass and spoke about good women. He named me. People clapped. Leon watched me, like he was waiting for a sign I would not give. I smiled for the room and burned on the inside. When the toast ended, I went to the hallway for air. Footsteps behind me. Gareth again. "Do not run," he said. "If you run, they will chase." I said, "Leave me alone." He did not touch me. He just stood too close. "Say the word and all this ends," he said. "Say it was a slip. Say you were dizzy." I wanted the quiet so badly that I almost agreed. I closed my eyes and saw Leon's face the first time he played me a song at our kitchen table. I opened my eyes and whispered, "No." He smiled like he had time. "You will," he said, "when it hurts enough." On Sunday, Leon knocked on our bedroom door, even though it was open. "Can we start over?" he asked. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to be new again. I said, "If we ignore the noise." He said, "Ignoring is not fixing." I said, "Fixing is not your job." He stared at the floor. "Then what is my job?" he asked. I said, "To be strong, to believe me." He whispered, "I do not know how." That night, while he showered, his phone lit up on the dresser. A message from his sister. "Mom says Dad crossed the line again. Are you okay?" My stomach turned. Again. She had written again. I had told myself the first time would be the last. I had told myself many things to keep the picture clean. The picture was not clean. I placed the phone back and sat on the edge of the bed. Water ran behind the door. I saw myself in the mirror. A woman who liked order, lists, and quiet rooms. A woman who said nothing and let others speak for her until their words became her life. When Leon came out, I said, "Let us go out Tuesday, just us, no family." He smiled, surprised. "Yes," he said. I thought a small date could make a bridge over a broken road. For 1 hour it did. We shared soup and bread. He told me about a child who learned a new chord and smiled with both hands. I laughed. It felt almost normal. Then Gareth walked into the same place with 2 men from his office. He saw us and lifted his hand. Leon went still. I felt the bridge crack under our feet. Gareth came over. "How are you two?" he asked like nothing was wrong. Leon said, "We are fine." Gareth looked at me and held my eyes for 1 second too long. I looked down at my bowl. I could feel the room watching. Gareth patted Leon's shoulder, then left. Leon paid the bill without finishing his food. Outside, he said, "I cannot breathe." I touched his arm. "We will be okay." He said, "Not with lies." His voice was soft, almost kind. It hurt more than shouting. I slept badly again. I dreamed of a spoon hitting tile. I woke to a message from Gareth. You are strong. Hold the line. I turned the phone face down. I wanted to throw it. I wanted to keep it. Both wants lived in me at once and fought all day. By midweek, vendors began to ask for confirmations. Flowers, chairs, music. I checked boxes, paid deposits, and pressed send. It felt like pushing a broken cart up a hill. People smiled at my planning. No one knew I could not keep air in my chest. That evening, Leon stood in the doorway with his keys in his hand. I am inviting everyone to dinner on Friday, he said. My parents, my sister, the cousins who were there. We will speak the truth in one room. My mouth went dry. No, I said. Do not do this. He nodded once. It is already done. I told myself I could still manage it. I could hold a calm face, use simple words, make the crowd doubt what they saw. I told myself I could save the wedding by shaping the story. I have always been good at shaping small stories, but this was not small anymore. This was the whole house, and the house was shaking. On Friday afternoon, I put on the blue dress and left the scarf in the drawer. I set plates. I set the table. I washed my hands twice. I looked at my face and found a new line near my mouth. I told my reflection, we will be fine if we keep calm. The reflection did not believe me. As the doorbell rang and voices filled the rooms, I felt the plan slide out of my hands. Leon stood tall and pale. Elise was tight and bright. Gareth was smiling for the crowd. I took a breath and told myself one last story, that I could still control how this ended. And then I saw the cousin, who had gasped in the hall, take out her phone, open the group chat, and start typing while looking at me. I realized the room would make its own story, with or without my help. The keys were no longer in my pocket. The door was already opening. The living room filled with chairs that did not belong to us. Extra lamps, extra eyes. Leon had pushed the coffee table against the wall to make space. He said, "We will speak, we will listen." I nodded like I agreed, though my chest felt tight. Elise arrived first, sharp perfume and a fixed smile. Gareth came next, cheerful for the room. Cousins and an aunt followed, whispering in low waves. I set a tray of water on the sideboard and told myself not to shake. I told myself calm was power. Leon cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming," he said. His voice trembled and then grew steady. "We need to talk about what has been happening. We will do it in the open, so no more guessing." He looked at me. "Isolde, do you want to start?" My mouth went dry. I reached for the nearest glass, but my hand missed. "I am fine," I said. "You can go first." He nodded, folded his hands, and turned to his family. "I saw something," he said. "I saw my father touch Isolde in the hall, twice, maybe more. I have asked for the truth and I keep getting silence. I cannot build a life on silence." Elise shifted in her chair. "Gareth would never," she began, but Leon held up a hand. "Please," he said, "let us finish a sentence before we start a war." His eyes were red but clear. Gareth smiled like a host. It was a narrow space. I moved, she moved, we bumped. Anyone can see that this is nothing. I adore Isolde as a future daughter-in-law. I would never make her uncomfortable. His words were smooth and pretty, like polished stones. For a second, I almost believed them again, the way I had trained myself to do. A cousin raised her hand like this was a class. "I was there," she said. "It did not look like a bump." Another cousin nodded. I heard the tray hit the tile. I saw her face. The room turned toward me as if pulled by a string. My back straightened. My list ran through my head. Smile, speak softly, do not feed the fire. "I am okay," I said. "It was a quick thing. I do not want trouble. We have a wedding to plan." Elise let out a quiet laugh. "You think this is about planning? This is about respect." She leaned forward. "Tell the truth now and we will protect you from gossip." I felt the trap in the words. Tell it her way or not at all. Leon stood, unable to stay seated. "Isolde, please," he said. "I love you. I need the truth. He looked so open and raw that I wanted to run from the room. Instead, for the first time in weeks, I took a breath that was not a lie. "He touched me," I said. The words were small but heavy. Chairs creaked. Someone exhaled hard. Gareth's smile cracked. "Now wait," he said, palms out. "Touched how?" "We brushed in a hall. That is all." My voice was barely above a whisper. "Not a brush." I heard my own breath. He slid his hand up. Elise gasped like a match lighting. "How dare you?" she said to me and then to him. "Gareth, tell her to stop." He said, calm again. "She is confused. She wants attention. This is wedding stress." I shook my head. "I did not want attention," I said, and then felt the heat of the half-truth. I had wanted something, to be seen, to be praised, to have someone say I was more than quiet and useful. I swallowed. "He sent messages," I added. "He brought gifts." I said nothing because I wanted the house to stay quiet. Elise turned to Leon. "You hear? She led him on, and now she blames him." My stomach flipped. Leon's sister spoke from the doorway, voice shaking. "I saw the bracelet box in their bag," she said. I asked myself why. I did not want to believe anything bad about Dad, but I cannot make sense of this. She looked at me, and I saw fear in her eyes, but also a small door of care. "Why did you not tell us?" she asked. I pressed my nails into my palm. "Because truth makes storms," I said. "I thought I could hold the roof down with silence." Elise laughed again, louder. "Listen to her poetry. Truth makes storms. You are not a roof. You are the wind." Gareth put a hand on her knee. "Enough," he said softly, still the charming host. "We are family. We will forgive." He turned to me. "Say it was a mistake, and we will all move on. No harm done." He smiled like this was mercy. Something brittle inside me snapped. I was tired of bending myself into a shape that pleased the room. "It was not a mistake," I said, louder than I planned. "It happened more than once. You knew what you were doing." His eyes hardened for a flicker and then softened. He looked at Leon. "Son, she is scared. She is making a shadow bigger than the lamp." Leon's hands shook. "Dad," he said, "look at me and say you did not do this." Gareth opened his mouth and closed it again. The room held its breath. My voice kept going now that it had started. I did not kiss him. I did not meet him in secret. But I answered some messages because I needed someone to say I mattered. I kept a gift because it felt like proof that I was seen. I told myself those things were small and clean. They were not clean. They were not nothing. I was wrong to stay quiet. The words tasted like metal, like a key I did not want. A cousin whispered, "So you admit it happened?" I nodded. "Yes," I said. "And I admit I liked the praise. I admit I used silence like a shield. I admit I made Leon carry doubt alone." I looked at him and saw how tired he was. "I am sorry," I said, and meant it, even as another voice in me said, "You were trying to keep everyone safe." Elise stood so fast her chair scraped. "This is a performance," she snapped. "She wants sympathy now that the wedding is close." She pointed at me. "You fed my husband's pride, and now you call it harm. You brought this into our house." I answered before I could stop myself. "He brought it into your house with his hands." Her face went white. Gareth finally dropped the host act. "Enough," he said, voice low. "You are not the first young woman to enjoy attention. Do not pretend you did not smile back." I felt the floor tilt. "I did smile," I said. "That does not give you rights." He took one step toward me. Leon stepped between us. "Stop," Leon said to his father. "Do not come any closer." His voice had no tremble now. He turned to the room. "You all heard her. You heard me. I cannot live inside a story where my father tests my future wife and my future wife answers with silence." He pulled the ring from his pocket and held it in his palm. "I wanted to marry the woman I thought I knew," he said to me, "but I do not know you anymore." I reached out with both hands. "Leon, please," I said. I tried to keep the peace. I thought I was protecting you from shame. I thought if I stayed calm, the line would move back on its own. I was wrong, but I was trying to save us. He shook his head. You were trying to save the picture, not us. His words were soft. They cut like glass. I turned to Elise. I did not plan this. I would never try to break your family. She stared past me like I was a window. I turned to Gareth. You could have stopped this with one message that said, I am sorry. I will never do this again. Instead, you told me to lie. He lifted his chin. You liked being chosen, he said. The room murmured. Leon closed his hand around the ring. For a moment I thought he would put it back in his pocket, that we would try again. Then he set it on the table. The sound was small but final. I cannot marry into this, he said. My knees felt like water. The room swayed. Someone started to cry quietly. A fork fell and rattled. I walked to the table and touched the ring. It was warm from his hand. We can fix this, I said. We can set rules, no messages, no gifts, no visits. We can move, we can change numbers, we can start over. Leon looked at me with a kindness that was worse than anger. I believe you want order, he said, but I do not believe you want truth. I opened my mouth and found I had no answer. Elise took a step toward Leon, palms up. You do not have to do this, she whispered. Her eyes flicked to me and flared. We can protect you. Leon shook his head. I am not a child, he said. I do not need guards. I need a life that does not ask me to doubt what I saw. He turned to the door. I moved with him. Please, one more chance, I said. I told the truth. I said the words. You said them when the room forced you, he answered without looking back. I begged you for weeks. His hand was on the knob when Gareth spoke again. Son, he said, and the word was heavy. You will regret this. Leon did not turn. I already regret what came before, he said. The door opened. Outside, air rushed in, cool and bright. I felt the eyes of everyone on my back. Leon, I said one last time, softer than a breath. He paused, and for a second I thought the story might bend. He said, I need to protect myself, and stepped into the hall. The door closed like a period at the end of a sentence. The room held still. Then sound returned in pieces. A cough, a glass put down, a cousin whispering, I am sorry, to no one in particular. Elise sat slowly and stared at her hands. Gareth moved to the sideboard and poured water that no one drank. I stood alone in the center of the empty space where the coffee table used to be and tried to make my breath obey. I heard a phone buzz, then another. The group chat came alive on screens around the room, small blue lights on faces that would not meet mine. Words I could not see traveled faster than anything I could say. I tried to speak, but my voice found nothing to hold. Finally, I said the only thing I had left. I am sorry, I told the room. Not for wanting to be seen, for letting that want build a path for harm, for choosing quiet until the quiet broke us. No one answered. The apology hung there, thin as thread. I picked up the ring, then set it down again, because it was not mine to keep. Elise rose and walked to the door without a word. Cousins followed. The aunt patted my arm and then looked away. Gareth lingered, eyes on the floor, as if searching for a version of the evening that would let him stay the hero. He said at last, You will thank me one day for trying to hold the family together. I looked at him. You held yourself together, I said. The family came apart in your hands. He flinched like the words had weight. He opened his mouth and closed it and left. When the door clicked, the apartment was quiet again. Not the soft quiet I once wanted, but the kind that follows a storm. I sat on the edge of the couch and pressed my fingers to my temples. I had told the truth at last, and yet the room still felt tilted, as if truth had arrived too late to stand up straight. In the morning, I went to the clinic. The lobby light was too bright. The printer jammed. My manager pulled me aside and said, Take a few days. She spoke like a person moving a vase. 2 patients stared at me while signing forms. One whispered to the other. I told myself they were talking about insurance. I told myself lies that were soft enough to swallow. At lunch, I checked my phone. The family chat had moved on to photos of a baby and a birthday cake. My name did not appear, but I could feel it between the lines, like a draft under a door. A friend from my old building sent a message. Are you okay? I typed, I am fine. I erased it. I typed, we cancelled the wedding. I erased it. I sent a sticker of a tulip and hated myself for it. Vendors called. A voice said, we saw the update. The venue released the date. Another asked about the deposit. I pressed numbers, moved money, said, thank you for your help. When I set the phone down, my hand shook. The calendar square with the small red heart was still pinned to the wall. I did not take it down yet. I was not ready to see that space empty. In the hallway outside our door, neighbors spoke in careful voices. Such a shame, someone said. Another answered, they were not a match. A third said, the father is charming at parties. I opened the door and the voices changed shape, like birds folding their wings. I smiled and said, good evening. They smiled back with lips and not with eyes. That night, I folded the scarf and placed it in a plain bag. I walked to Gareth and Elise's porch and left it there. I did not ring the bell. On the way home, I passed the river and almost threw the bag in, but I kept walking. I told myself I was done with symbols. I told myself I would live by facts now. Leon came by the next afternoon with a box of his things. He did not step inside. He said, the guitar is with a friend for now. I said, okay. He said, I changed my email. I said, okay. He looked over my shoulder at the small table. You cleaned, he said. I nodded. He opened his mouth like he would say something else and then closed it. He carried the box down the stairs. A girl from the clinic sent a link to a neighborhood forum. Did anyone see the scene last Friday? One post asked. Another said, poor Leon. A third said, people misread. That family is intense. I wrote a reply in my head that began with, you do not know me, but I did not type it. In the mirror, I practiced a small smile that did not invite questions. Elise did not write to me. Leon's sister sent one line. Please stop messaging Dad. I sent back, I will not message him. She answered, he should not message you either. I wrote, I agree. My fingers left small crescents in my palm. 2 days later, I returned to work. A mother at the desk said, are you the bride? I said, not anymore. She shifted and said, I'm sorry. Then she added, I hope you made the right choice. I said, I hope so too, and felt the floor move. In the evening, I walked to the venue that would have been ours. Through the glass, I saw chairs in neat rows, pale and quiet. A couple stood near the arch, while a planner pointed and smiled. I pressed my hand to the cold pane and wondered if they could feel me on the other side. On the sidewalk, a little girl twirled and said, Look, I am a bride. Her mother laughed. I kept walking. I tried to cook and burned the rice. I tried to sleep and woke every hour. I tried to list what was left of my life, and the list looked like a receipt with too many blank lines. I told myself this was the cost of honesty, and then I remembered how late the honesty came. Gareth sent one more message. Let us talk like adults. We can fix the story. I blocked the number and stood very still, as if the act might be heard through walls. My phone felt lighter and heavier at the same time. My hands would not stop shaking. The next day, the clinic owner asked me to meet in his office. He said, We are a family practice. We need calm. People in town are talking. You may take a leave, or we may part ways. He looked at the window while he spoke. I said, I will take a leave. He said, We will pay 2 weeks. He shook my hand as if I had brought him a form to notarize. I packed my drawer into a small box. A patient brought flowers and asked for Leon's music class schedule for her son. I wrote it on a card, She said, "He is kind. He helped my boy last year." I nodded. When she left, I folded my coat over the box and walked out. I tried to call my mother. She answered on the third ring and said, "What happened?" I said, "I made bad choices." She said, "Did he hurt you?" I said, "He crossed a line and I stayed quiet." She said, "Why?" I said, "I thought the line would move back on its own." She was quiet. Then she said, "Come home for a few days." I said, "Not yet. I need to stand here and feel it." On what would have been the rehearsal night, I sat on the floor with the box from work and the receipt from the venue. The lamp buzzed. Outside, a car alarm chirped and stopped. I picked up the ring that was not mine and placed it in a small dish. I told myself I was returning objects to their natural places. I told myself this was order. A knock came close to midnight. It was Leon. He stood in the doorway like a question. He said, "I forgot the sheet music in the hall closet." I let him in. He opened the closet, took the folder, and turned to go. I said, "Wait." He waited. "I told the truth," I said. He nodded. "Yes." "I am sorry," I said, "not for wanting to be seen, for using silence as a tool. For feeding a story I could have ended sooner." He looked at the floor. "I hear you," he said. He did not move closer. I wanted to ask for another chance and felt the ache of it rise. I swallowed it. I said, "If you ever want to talk, I will listen." He said, "I need time without storms." I said, "I understand." He lifted the folder like a shield and stepped back into the hall. The door closed softly. I sat on the couch and stared at the dish with the ring. I imagined placing it in his hand without words. I imagined waking in a house where no one looked at doors while they spoke. Then I stood, took the calendar square with the red heart, and peeled it off the wall. The paint underneath looked new. I carried the square to the trash and paused. I held it above the bin for a long breath and then let it go. It fell with a soft sound. The room was very still. Somewhere a pipe ticked like a slow clock. I sat back down and folded my hands in my lap the way I do when patients ask me for directions, and I do not know the answer. A message from a friend lit the screen. "Dinner next week?" I wrote, "Yes." I erased it. I wrote, "Maybe." I sent it. The small word looked like a step onto thin ice. I put the phone face down and stared at the ceiling until my eyes stung. Outside, a siren moved through the night and faded. I thought about the girl at the window and the couple by the arch. I thought about the bench behind the building, and the weeds between the bricks, and the way I said no too late to matter. I pressed my palms together and made a shape like prayer without sound. I told myself I had done the brave thing at last. I told myself I had saved someone, even if it was not me. And then I heard the quiet answer I did not want. Maybe I only saved the picture of myself I wanted them to see.